area before I tried to unscrew the cap to the tire stem. After a few seconds, my fingers began to tremble, and I still hadn't removed the rubber cap. I felt as if every eye were on me as the sounds of other people slamming their car doors echoed above my head. Finally, the black cap fell onto the ground. Immediately, I snatched a pencil from my back pocket. I turned behind me and met John's eyes. His face was tight, and he raised his eyebrows, telling me how disappointed he was with my performance. John then mouthed, "Come on, move it." I took a quick breath before I jammed the end of the pencil into the stem of the tire. The air seemed to explode as it howled out of the tiny opening. I knew that everyone could hear what I was doing. I hesitated for a second as I searched for John, who nodded for me to continue. A blanket of fear seemed to cover me. "No," I yelled at myself. "This is totally wrong." On purpose, I snapped the end of my pencil, stood up, and walked past John, who dared me to finish the job. I brushed past him as I made my way out of the parking lot. John and the gang taunted me all the way down the street until they turned the corner to John's house. The next day, John's razzing continued. In the schoolyard, without warning, he shoved me to the ground. As I got up, a small circle formed. "Fight! Fight!" they chanted. I kept my head down as I tried to break through the crowd. A round of insults flew above me. Within minutes, the entire school seemed to know that I had betrayed John and his gang. I felt a coldness that was worse than the one at Thomas Edison Elementary School. The next morning, I made a string of excuses to Lillian about how I felt too sick to go to school. I never told her about John or my social problems at school. If I did, I knew Rudy and Ms. Gold would be furious. After a few weeks of the cold shoulder, I apologized to John and his gang. As a way of showing my friendship, I presented John with a carton of Marlboro cigarettes I had stolen the day before. "All right, kid," John smiled. "The boys and I forgive your weakness, but you still have to be initiated into our group." I nodded to myself as my mind replayed all the stories I had heard about John punching and kicking the two other boys of his gang until they fell to the ground. I saw myself with a bloody face, broken glasses, and smashed-in teeth. I stared into his eyes, giving him my tough guy look. "Okay, man, I can handle it," I said smoothly. "No, man," John said as he showed off his unlit cigarette. "I've got something special for you. Listen carefully. I'm tired, Mr. Smith. He thinks he's so tough because he's the teacher. He wrote a letter to my mother because it was a sheep in my ass. So, I say, let's burn down his class." My mouth fell open. "Nah, man, you, can't be serious." "Hey, I'm not saying you gotta do it. I'm just saying I need you to be the lookout for me, that's all. I can't count on those two wusses. They're wimps. But you've got guts." Suddenly, John's voice changed. "And if you ever think on me, I will stomp all over you." A split second later, he changed his tone back again. "Hey, man, don't sweat it. I'm not talking about doing it today. Just be there when I need you, all right?" "Yeah, man," I nodded. I'll help you out. I'm cool." I walked away, telling myself that he was just acting tough. Nobody ever burns down a school. But what if he's serious? What should I do? I couldn't tell Mrs. Catanza, and especially not the teachers. But no matter what, I would never turn John in. Not because I wanted to be nice, but because of the fear of being brutalized and living through the humiliation afterward. I dreaded running into John over the next few days, as he continually renewed his vow that one day, soon, he was going to teach the teacher a lesson. As the weeks dragged by, I began to think that he was simply showing off to receive attention from anyone who'd listen. At times, whenever a large crowd gathered, I'd brag too, stating that John and I had developed the plan that would show everyone in the school just how tough we were. The more I boasted, the larger the crowds grew. I was amazed at how the kids who had ridiculed me before were now hanging on my every word. After a few days of spinning tales, John's involvement disappeared, as I found myself stating that I would be the person who would do the deed. Weeks passed, and soon I had forgotten about the plan, until one day after school, John had a deep, cold look in his eyes as he ordered me to be back at the school in an hour. I felt a lump creep up my throat. "Okay, man, I'll be back," I said before I could think of an excuse. About an hour later, as I walked back on the school grounds, I prayed that he had chickened out. The smell of papers burning filled the hallway. I broke into a run as I followed the smoke and made my way into the classroom module. Seconds later, I found John bent over a small hole as black smoke poured out of a kicked-in air vent. I stood in total disbelief. I never thought he'd actually do it. "John!" I yelled. John's head shot up. "Jesus, man, where you been? Come on, help me." I stood behind him, still unsure of myself. "Come on, man, help me. Help me put out the fire," he cried. My brain locked up until I shook my head clear, as smoke continued to escape the open vent. John's face was seized with terror. After a few seconds, he fell backward. "No way, man. It's out of control. I'm out of here. Come on, let's go." Before I could reply, I saw his shadow disappear down the hall. I bent down in front of the vent and turned my head, coughing from the dark smoke. A small red-orange fire began to take form. In a flash, I grabbed a can of lighter fluid that John had left and pulled it out from the vent. As I withdrew the can, I squeezed it so hard that a stream of fluid ignited, racing from the can and toward my hand, soaking it with the clear fluid. For a moment, I thought the tin can would explode, and my right hand with it.